Hello folks and welcome to Tippcast. Today with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by the head of sport in the Nina Guardian, Shane Brophy. We're going to be toasting a pretty decent win for Tipperary, first time since 2008 to beat Kilkenny down in Nolan Park, especially, it being a league match as well, no harm as well, rather than just, some sort of pre-season type game. It's a match of some significance. We're going to talk about the Dillon Quirke Foundation game that's going to be going on Sunday. We'll be talking football, also ladies football and camogie as well. So Shane, let's get directly to it. You were at that match. Were you at the match on Sunday? You were, weren't you?
I was. I would have a lot of Kilkenny family, and every time I'm at a Tipp game down there, I get fed afterwards. First time in 15 years, I was able to go and eat something and be on the winning side. It was just satisfying. The dinner went down easier this time.
Yeah, 224 to Tipperary, 121 to Kilkenny. 12 points up at half-time. Completely dominated that first half, 213 to 7, I think it was.
Yeah.
Second half, Kilkenny made a fair old burst. You're not going to get beaten out the gate in your home patch. And you know what? I think it was somewhat helped by Tipperary missing a few easy chances at the start of the second half. There was maybe a goal chance that was forced when it wasn't fully on. Now, I loved that Tipperary were driving down the centre and looking for goal chances. Then there was another easy point chance missed.
Alan Tynan missed an easy one, and Jason missed a couple of frees that he was off. Yeah, look, I suppose
those are two lads who gave exhibitions now, so we're not going at them. But that probably opened the door a little for Kilkenny. They made a fair old burst back, but Tipperary saw it out and won by 6. So lost the second half by 6, but managed the game.
Yeah, it was probably the ideal way the win happened. We won comfortably enough. A lot of things to tidy up on. Had to come through a little bit of adversity in the second half when I suppose the lead was whittled back to 4. And I tell you, if Barry Hogan hadn't made that save from John Donnelly when he did it, I think it would have been down to maybe 3 or 2 at that stage, and then it's really on. And you have memories of some of those matches, maybe over the last 15 years, where we were in good positions and we were submerged in the closing stages. So it was great. I did the tot up. Like sometimes I remember in 08 when Tipp beat Cork for the first time in 80-something years, and you were saying, gosh, how few times had we played them down there? Like Tipp had played Kilkenny 8 times in the last 15 years in Nolan Park and lost a lot of them. Like, so it was a bad record. Like, it was 1 championship game and 7 league games, 2 were finals. Like, so it was a really rotten record, and to raise that is a sort of nice little box ticked, like heading into the rest of the campaign.
Right, so are we going to allow for the fact that Kilkenny were without their Ballyhale Shamrocks contingent, and no more than Tipperary as well? They would have a few injuries. So, and again, also probably big day for Derek Ling. He's in his first big home competitive match and everything. So there's probably a fair few factors at play for Kilkenny as well.
There were, I think, but I think you'd allow them a pass only for the fact that the Ballyhale lads were missing their forwards. Okay, and they would improve any forward line, but like defensively, like they still had Hugh Lawler, who thought he had a brilliant game at full back. Really, I'd say apart from him, they could have got destroyed altogether. Mikey Butler was poor. Some of the new guys, Conor Heary, had a poor game. Killian Buckley, I thought, was way off the pace. Now I worry for Killian.
Killian Doyle in midfield, he was taken off, and I'm not sure he made any impact at all. Like,
plus, look,
Kenny taken off during the first half, and like he was taken off after something like 23 minutes.
Yeah.
And generally, that isn't just a split-second decision. They'd probably been thinking for maybe 5 minutes, are we going to take him off here? Like, so obviously he didn't impress.
I think that had as much to do that he played Fitzgibbon Cup with Carlow on the previous Thursday, and he looked spent. And look, that'll be a learning one for Derek Ling, that you've got to sense these things before. Like, Cian Kenny's always going to say, I'm going to play for Kilkenny, but Ling has got to sense these things. Is he right? And look, Liam Cahill sensed it with Brian O'Mara and Gerard O'Connor. He didn't start them on Sunday, and Brian O'Mara came on for 15 minutes, so they weren't exposed too much. It was like they probably have another 2 colleges matches coming up. You'd expect them to win their semi-final this week and have another match. So it's I know we had Conor O'Rourke on Football giving out about the timing, but like managers can Inter-county managers can control an awful lot of this and control lads' minutes. And in fairness,
and they've 40 players in their panels as well.
Yeah. And like Tipp have a lot of injuries too. Like, and he could have easily gone with more or less the same 15 or maybe a lot more of the team that played against Laois. But no, he changed it up like 9. Initially 10 changes, then were 9 changes when Reece Shelley couldn't start. So, and I suppose it was, I don't know how you felt when you saw the team. Like, you think 9 changes, you think, God, we're risking a chance of winning here. But it just shows you the depth that's in that Tipperary squad at the moment.
And then, like if you go along to maybe next year, when the lads that have the knee injuries, Barry Heffernan, Craig Morgan, Gerard Brown, maybe one of them will be back this year. I'm not entirely sure. But all of a sudden, it feels like the real options are there. But to me, I mean, I'm not sure who your man of the match was, but to me, Alan Tynan was exceptional. His use of the ball, like the little pop hand passes, he's always trying to give it to the lad in the best space. The way he burns down the middle of the pitch, commits men. And during the first half at one stage, he ran down the middle. He was met by a big Kilkenny man, and it was the Kilkenny man who ended up on the floor. I was really, really impressed with him.
Yeah, I know. It was hard not to look away from forward with the 115. Like, I suppose 1-5 play, he was tremendous. I suppose he could have. I think he could have finished at 120. He hit 5 wides as well. Like, and that's rare for Jason. He's so accurate. Like, so. No, Tynan was very good, and I suppose the one thing about him, he's not. He doesn't have blinding pace. He's going to be direct. And there was a few times in the first half when he made solo runs through the middle and he wasn't able to shake off his men maybe to get his own shot away. So that's probably something that will, in terms of the other forwards, will start to think, okay, Alan's on the move. I've got to be on the shoulder because he might be able to get away and get his own shot away. So like, if I'm off the shoulder, if maybe Seamus Kennedy is going to be another half forward, like we're definitely going to have a lot of ball winning options. Like I've made a comment in my analysis that from 5 to 12, we've an awful lot of those physical interchangeable guys, if you know what I mean. Like you look at the half back line that started last week, Enda Heffernan, Pádraig Campion, Ron Amar. I thought all did pretty well. You have Brian McGrath to come back in, you have Brian Amar to come back in. You can go Seamus Kennedy if you wanted to as well. Excuse me, Dan McCormick can go back there if needs be. Unfortunately, looks like hopefully Paddy Cadell, like I know they were waiting on a scan result yesterday and that knee injury. Hopefully his injury's not too bad. And then if you had Barry Heffernan and Craig Morgan around, like Craig can play halfback as well. So like we really seem to have a lot of powerful bodies in that middle third from 5 to 12.
Yeah, without question. One thing, like this is a bit of a pernickety sort of point. Like Jake Morris, at times he got the ball and he burned out the opposition. And I think they intentionally put him on, slightly more of a veteran player in Killian Buckley to try and get him to run at him. But he's a left-hander, of course, as everyone knows. But striking on his left side as a left-hander, it seemed to me a couple of the point attempts kind of tailed wide. His goal opportunity from a narrow angle. He's probably just that bit more, I'd say, comfortable striking on the other side. So I would be thinking if he played on the other wing, he might have had an awful lot more.
Maybe, but he's not afraid to shoot off that side. Like he got that great point against Wexford in 2019 from no angle. So I thought his positioning, I don't know whether they're trying to. I don't know whether they're trying to get more out of him. I think he would be better off closer to the goal, maybe playing in the Conor Bowe role, and maybe Conor Bowe would be better where Morris was. Morris is more of a finisher, like so. But maybe
I thought Bowe was brilliant.
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying Morris's strength is a more of a finisher, if you know what I mean. Like if he gets 1-on-1 with the defender, he's going to take him on every time. I thought Bowe, apart from his finish for the goal that ended up for Morris, like I thought that was. Like the way he planted his foot in a big wind up, he's got to tidy that up. Like he's got to manipulate the goalie there. Like actually Morris did. Morris gave the goalie the eyes and sent him the wrong way. But I thought Bowe had a big second half, won some big possessions when we were slightly starting to come under a bit of pressure. Delivered a couple of key passes for other players to score as well. No, I thought Bowe was very, very good.
Yeah, I know he was excellent, and I like him up there as being like you can lump that ball up the field, and his physicality means the defenders are going to have to, expend a lot of energy to get it out there.
It could be Bow and Morris in that two-man full forward line. I know. Look, it was Seamus Callan's first game back. I'm not convinced first game of the championship that Seamus will be have a starting role. Look, I could be proved wrong. If he gets up to speed and gets back to his best, he could be still very, very dangerous. I thought maybe, it was Laois. I thought when the ball was spread into space against Laois, Bonner Maher's touch was better. The ball was gone. So I'm sure the more games Seamus gets, the better. So and it could be Morris and Bow inside, or Maher and Bow and lads coming off the shoulder. So there's depending on who they're playing, I think, and hopefully we keep injury free John McGrath there too. There's a lot of different ways Tipp can play that forward line, because plus it's 20-man game. Lads are going to have to come on and finish as well. So
yeah, and like what I'd also say is I think they like Jake Morris a little bit further out, because when he gets the ball, he can run straight down the defence, and he's got so much pace. But that doesn't mean there aren't other lads who could potentially play that role. Maybe even Mark Keogh. Like when he came on, I just think, again, too often he puts the hurley to the ball when he just needs to put his hands to it. And a few times it took him a few goals to get it up. I would imagine that confidence is probably just a little bit low at the moment, but I definitely think he can kick on and be a huge player for Tipp, because
I think he's starting to play who knows it's a big year for him. He was one of the guys in 2019 that came off the bench, and he's 25 now, going on 24, 25. He's around the age Seamus Callan really started to click. But
these lads haven't got enough. Some of these lads haven't got enough a chance. Like we can't look at it and say, well, look, you're 24 now. It's not like they've gotten huge amount of game time chances. But another thing I'd say is, a couple of years ago, in the last 2 or 3 years, there's some of the older players you're nearly thinking, right, this person's on their last legs here. Yeah. But like Bonner looked very sharp and powerful last week. Noel McGrath was excellent the other day. The amount of turnovers, never mind the stuff on the ball, but the amount of turnovers off the ball. Ronan Maher looked very good, except for the couple of pot shots from distance, which I think.
Yeah, there was just a couple. Yeah, he was good going forward. A couple of times, John Donnelly gave him trouble when he came on. I don't think all 4 points came from Ronan Maher, from Donnelly. I'm not sure whether Donnelly drifted into centre forward for a spell there, and maybe that's why Pádraig Campion was taken off. I thought it was. I thought at the time maybe it was a strange call. Maybe Campion was coming under pressure, but no. All in all, Kilkenny Kilkenny were under pressure on their own puck outs. Was every time they had to go along, they were beaten in the air, because Heffron and Campion and Ronan Maher were so strong, and Dan McCormack probably got on an awful lot of ball. And then when Talis had to go short, the Tipp, particularly the half-backs midfield, are really pressing up on the ball, and if there were the short puck-outs, are really pressing up and put him under pressure.
But this is the modern organisation. Yeah. I mean, if people are wondering why the managerial change was made, this is it. Like Tipperary are now, for the first time, they look organised. They're running straight down the centre of an opposition's defence. Last year against Cork, when we got annihilated, they were walking the ball out from the back. That's not going to be happening now. I mean, this is modern hurling. But just to go back to the point that I was making about some of the older players, in the last 2 or 3 years, even Dan McCormack and Noel McGrath and Bonner and Seamus Callan and so on and so forth, people were wondering, did these lads even have a future? But I think because the team is now organised and set up far better, far tighter, working in units and pods, or whatever way you want to say it, these lads, all of a sudden, we can see, okay, they're actually still really good players if we've got the team organised.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. It's no, you have plenty to be optimistic about. I suppose the only thing is the injuries, and hopefully Cathal Barrett's is not too serious. I know there were a bit of concern afterwards with the shoulder, and you're worried about an AC joint then, and they're notoriously slow to heal. And look, if Cathal potentially doesn't see any action for 4 or 5, like we all know, once Cathal is ready for the 23rd of April in Cusack Park, that's when we want him. But because we're not blessed in options at cornerback. I thought Johnny Ryan had a solid game. Probably came under a bit of pressure from Billy Drennan in the second half.
Connolly came in and did quite well.
Did well as well. I suppose you think about the corresponding game last year in Semple Stadium, where he got the run around playing cornerback. He looked a lot more assured this time around. And
But
then
you know
Michael
why that
Green,
is? It's because the team is organised and it's not kind of being dragged up the field and stretched all over the place. So last year, Owen Connolly was playing against Dublin in Semple Stadium. He was marking Aidan Mellett, a fast, smaller type player. Gorgeous ball going in, uncontested in front of him. Sure, what chance do you have if you're 6'4"? Whereas now the team is more organised, it's more compact. So all these players who might have looked like, oh, I'm not sure about him, now they've got that better platform to succeed.
Yeah, and I thought Michael Breen. I thought Michael Breen had a good outing. Look, I thought Walter Walton was probably sort of made for him, a big physical guy. He had to stand up to that challenge, and I actually thought that the best thing Michael Breen did on Sunday was the foul on Martin Keown in the first half. It was one of those good fouls you have to give away. Keown was in for a goal unless he pulled him down, and just said, okay. He had the defensive instinct there to make the decision. I've got to foul him because if he's through, it's 1-on-1. And strangely enough, Patrick Murphy didn't give a yellow card. There was no card given in the match, which was incredible. Fair play to him.
Yeah. So what about some of the younger lads we haven't seen that much? John Campion, I was quite impressed with him coming in, very industrious, tends to always do the right thing on the ball. You've already mentioned Johnny Ryan. I think Ender Heffernan, sometimes, on the ball.
Yeah,
he's trying to do the right thing, though, which I like. And he hasn't played many matches of this level, but he was trying to do the right thing. He's a big ignorant block of the oak, which is obviously a big positive. Just the odd time turned it over, but him tying, the young lads are coming in and making an impact.
Yeah, I know Heffernan, in terms of the starting point of getting on the ball, he's very, very good. I think once maybe he gave a pass into the middle that led to a bit of trouble. Couple of times. And he was iffy about taking a shot on, but look, I suppose he probably knows his own limitations, which I think is good about a player. It's just that other guys have got to, if they see Enda on the ball, they've got to make themselves available too. I thought Enda had a very, very solid game. Pádraig Campion, I thought a good first half. At centre back, probably came under a bit more pressure in the second, and I thought Johnny Ryan did well. In terms of the subs, Owen Connolly, Johnny Campion, you couldn't say anything against them. Look, it was, you'd have to say, in terms of what you wanted out of the game, 20 guys got matches. Even Sean Ryan, when he came on, it got onto a couple of, when we just at that few minutes when we needed to hold the ball up, if he didn't slow it down, he tried to get on it. He's a guy that's willing to shift, to take a bit of punishment to win possession.
Yeah, and then we'll circle back to Jason Ford, another player that has got plenty of criticism, and people often say, "Oh yeah, he does great in the league," and then where in the summer. But maybe this is the first time that he could play in the inside forward line. Tipper working the ball up the field, drawing out the opposition, and he's having lovely one bounce ball put in front of him where he can turn, fire it over the bar. This could end up being his best season.
That's it. And you're thinking, if Tipp go down the road of playing maybe two wing forwards that are going to be workers, as maybe Seamus Kennedy and Alan Tynan, just for example, are the two wing forwards, that you'd have maybe Ford, Noel McGrath, maybe drifting off them, they come alive to see these guys in the ball because they're going to give you a pop pass. They'll know their limitations maybe, and it could be them. They could be picking off big scores every day.
Yeah, it's true. A comment here from NLR. Alan Flynn, obviously Kildangan was undroppable as a cornerback in run to 2018 league final. Is he another option at cornerback as cover for injuries? Yeah, when maybe he doesn't play there mostly though.
Yeah, he's not in the squad.
He's not. Yeah, I know he's not in the squad. Yeah, and I'm guessing that NLR knows that as well. But he's one of those players that's probably played more.
I'd be surprised if he's drafted back in. I know they have an extended panel beyond the 40 at the moment, so it'd be interesting, particularly with the Dillon Quirke game, and a few injuries. I'm sure maybe there'll be maybe some of the guys, maybe the subs and extended panelists, maybe that didn't play last week and get a run. I don't think they'll go too experimental to the Dillon Quirke game. I think Liam Cahill will give the game the respect it deserves. I think definitely Derek Ling, I think, will probably maybe could maybe put out closer to a stronger team, as he probably think, lads, you let yourselves down last weekend. You have an opportunity to go down to Tipp and maybe redeem yourselves a small. But even though it's a challenge match, but it probably has more of a feel of a competitive edge to this Dillon Quirke, and maybe just maybe an ordinary behind the closed door challenge game. Like so.
Yeah, watching on TV now, because I was at Parnell Park, it seemed that the atmosphere was very muted. Now, of course, Kilkenny were getting the runaround in the first half. It's somewhat, understandable. But generally, Tipperary Kilkenny matches, there's a huge atmosphere in Nolan Park. So was it very muted throughout?
The same edge that would have been there, and maybe a lot of those league matches beforehand wasn't there. I think there's definitely a sense within Kilkenny that they're unsure about the group of players they have. Like, I don't think it's anything against everything. It's just that they know the quality of maybe their panel is not what they had over the last 15, 20 years when they knew when anytime Tipp were out there, even if they were missing a Henry Scheffler and an Owen Larkin or Tommy Walsh, they still had quality. They're still like Billy Drennan definitely looks like a player that's going to develop into a fine player of next year. He's really still young, but there was no fear factor player in their team last weekend. Maybe apart from Hugh Lawler, who I thought was outstanding. He always seems to be good. Like Pádraig Walsh, I thought was sluggish enough. Paddy Deegan was quiet. Walter Walsh, solid enough. John Donnelly was very good when he came on. Billy Ryan was busy, but it's the same thing with Billy Ryan. I think the whole time you're always expecting Billy to come of age, but it just sometimes he just drifts in and out of matches. I just think he's a player with loads of something there, but we don't always see it out of him.
Yeah, like if you look at some of the substitutes that were used, we already mentioned John Donnelly coming in early for Cian Kenny. So 23 minutes, he was gone. Conor Fogarty came on for Doyle. I don't think Fogarty did quite as much as he normally would. Alan Murphy came on for Mikey Butler after 39, taken off again on 61. So, he got a similar amount of time as Kenny as well.
The Lanch should probably be in the team come championship.
Yeah, but it just kind of showed that, Ling is obviously searching for what his best team is as well. And, some of the, and obviously I would imagine they'd be performing better with the Shamrocks lads, of course, but of what's there at the moment, he's obviously kind of going to need a little bit of time to develop the lads that are there, and probably not totally convinced by everyone he has at the moment.
No, look, I'm sure he'll be given time, but I suppose they'll be they won't give him too much leeway. You probably think, look, they still have Laois to play. They have Waterford and Dublin. Probably under pressure, probably to make a semi-final. But I think they have the Waterford and Dublin games in Nolan Park. You wouldn't rule them out of sneaking into a semi-final at this stage.
Yeah, so Tipperary changed everything bar from 1 to 4 remained the same for both games because Rhys Shelley picked up that injury playing Fitzgibbon. But what's changed for Tipperary this year, do you reckon? In terms of how they're playing, you've been at both games.
Yeah. Actually, they're fitter for one thing. They look a very, very powerful unit. They look lean. They look powerful. And it's athletic. And I think they understand. They're buying into what they're being asked to do. I just thought there was times last year where they were unsure. Lads were standing off their men, but there's none of that this year. And look, they're prepared to make mistakes, and they're prepared to try things. Like Johnny Ryan gave a sort of was when Walter Walsh was steaming. I just love the way Tipp didn't actually. Remember, it was in the second half that Walter was going through, and I think Michael Breen got back to put him off. It would have been easy maybe just to panic and pull him down and maybe concede a penalty and a sin bin, and suddenly you're down to 14 men for 10 minutes. It just that sort of. I thought there was a good element of composure, and lads thought their way through them and didn't panic. Even when the lead was whittled down, there was no element of panic. They kept chipping away. Even when the wides were mounting and lads were never coming under pressure, there was always a sense, okay, we'll get another chance, and they just there was a bit of a breeze down there. So Tipp scored 10 points against the breeze in the second half. Kilkenny only scored 7 with it in the first half. So even though they lost the second half by 6, they still kept the scoreboard ticking over.
Yeah, and Tipperary next will go to Croke Park to beat a Dublin team that I saw last weekend. Dublin have a lot of injury issues. Obviously, the huge player turnover from last year. Some of the players that people would always look at has been the spine of their team. Keane O'Callaghan, Chris Crummy, Liam Rush, they're all not involved, and along with several others, Rian McBride and so on and so forth. And they're struggling for scores. Ronan Hayes has been injured. I'm not sure if Alex Considine will be available. I think Keane O'Sullivan is out for a few months. So in the forward line, they don't have that much at the moment, and I think Tipperary might fill at them at Croke Park. Because Tipp now, they're running the ball through the lines, and they're looking up and they're popping a nice ball into the inside forwards. And look, Tipperary always have great hurlers, but now they're actually playing to those hurlers' strengths, rather than the olden days of, it's basically like Barcelona's players playing Stoke City tactics. Now Tipperary are actually popping the ball and giving it up, and getting the heads up. And I think
it's going to be a big game because you're looking at the next two against Waterford, and Dublin will determine probably whether Tipp get to a semi-final. If you win one of those two games, assuming you take care of Antrim in the last game, that'll be enough to get one of the semi-final spots. So, and I think Tipperary, I don't know how you feel, I think Tipperary are one of the teams who could do with getting an extra game. Or even, I don't think Tipperary would shy away from getting to a league final, because I think too much is made of Waterford getting to the league final last year, that was the fact that they struggled. That had nothing got to do with it. The Waterford struggles last year were what they did in the 3 weeks between the Limerick defeat and the match against Cork, when at a time when they should have been freshening up after a busy period, they doubled down on their training and they came out stale against Cork, and that was it. I think if you offered Liam Cahill a place in a league final 2 weeks before Clare, I think he'd take it. I think he needs more tough, big games for this group of players to learn and develop, the better.
Keone 8 says Tipp have tried 28 players ? So far. When will we see Liam Cahill start to nail down positions, considering there are just 3 or 4 games left in the league? I don't think he needs to, because no matter who seems to start, who comes on, they're playing the same way, and that's been the big difference. And the fact that he's been able to do that, and it's obviously a collective in the backroom team, the fact that they've done it so quickly just shows you how good a game plan that they have and how much it makes sense to the players.
Yeah, I don't think he can nail it down. I don't think he'll nail down to it. You still have the Fitzgibbon quandary with Shelley and O'Connor and Mara over the next few weeks. I do think maybe the 11th of March game against Waterford, I wouldn't be surprised if he targets that game as one maybe to put out a really strong team, or maybe something close to his championship team. Because you're potentially that's one where you're not far away. You're probably 5-6 weeks away from championship. It's just far enough where you've got to be that smell of the summer hardened ground should come into view. So I think we'll definitely see maybe a bit more changing up the team against Dublin, and definitely against Kilkenny this weekend. But I wouldn't be surprised maybe close maybe the Waterford game that we could be starting to get some pointers maybe in that match.
Couple of weeks ago, we were talking about will Tipperary get out of Munster this year. At the time, I said yes. I think you were more no at the time. How are you feeling about it now?
I definitely think we're moving in the right direction. There's no doubt about it. But it's
come on now, Tipper back. Come on now.
It's still Limerick. Limerick will get one of the top 3, and Jesus, it's a toss of a coin between the other 4. Every one of them has claims to say they could do it. I do think the first game between Clare and Tipp is absolutely massive, because I think if Tipp win, I think Tipp could take off and Clare could bomb after that. But then if Clare win, I think there's definitely more pressure on Clare for the first game because it's their home match, whereas maybe Tipp have home games to come. So look, it's probably there's a bit of pressure probably growing in Clare. I know that probably the natives weren't happy with the nature of their performance against Limerick last weekend, but there was a sense, even looking at Lohan on the line, that maybe people were playing it up that Clare had to do something against Limerick. But I'm not convinced Lohan saw it that way. I think Lohan knows that the time to get into maybe Limerick is in the summer, and they'll have Kelly and they'll have John Conlon and a few more guys, Shane O'Donnell. But I'm sure he probably would have been disappointed maybe with some of the fringe guys maybe who were given an opportunity and just didn't take it.
And in our first episode of the year, you and I both, kind of pie in the sky, tried to pick our 15s for the championship. Might just bring them up on screen here again and see, do we think a whole lot has changed in the meantime? So I've got Barrett, Breen, McCarthy. So obviously now Johnny Ryan's pushed himself into the conversation. And the Heffernan, he's given, I think the half back line mightn't be too far away. Connor Stapleton, injury is probably the only real issue. Like the management seem to be so happy with him after the first 2 games of the year. Yeah, I think Alan Tynan will be in there. I'm thinking I mightn't be a million miles off here. What do you think of your own team? Although to be fair, like Jason Ford, he's pushed himself right back at the top of the pecking order ahead of Sean Ryan.
Yeah, I would. I suppose you would think it depends on Conor McCarthy's injury, whether he'll see much game time. I probably would say Johnny Ryan is in the box seat. He's got the 2 games. It all depends, like, how the rest of them go. It would be interesting to see how Owen Connolly maybe goes. Maybe if he gets another couple of games. It's like we know that maybe the day of an out and out second cornerback is not needed. So maybe Owen Connolly maybe a sort of a more of a hybrid sort of cornerback come halfback like Barry Heffernan was towards the end of 2019. He might come in there. Midfield, maybe you could see Seamus Kennedy drop back to 9. There's like you look at my selection there and you say maybe Tynan at the moment. Like who comes out to put Tynan in? I'm not sure. Where do you fit him in? Like was like Dan McCormack had a great game. Seamus Kennedy probably is a nailed-on starter. Gerard O'Connor is going very well for club and college. 3 inside forwards. Then you have John McGrath, and then you have Bonner Maher, who I thought was terrific against Laois. I'm just interested to see if Bonner against Dublin or Laois, or Dublin or Waterford, maybe particularly against Dublin, if he's on O'Donnell, if he can have the same impact against better opposition, and if the forward line seems to be more free flowing, maybe with his ability to bring others into the play against maybe those 2 inside full backs, he could maybe definitely be pushing to start as well.
He's not from your parish.
But Bonner won't be a 70-minute player, so he could be a 45-minute starter or a 25-minute finisher. Like I definitely think he'll be an option one way or the other.
Yeah. Okay. So Ashley Bentley says Ford has been consistently good for years. River Power is Niall O'Mara still on the panel? He is, as far as I know.
He is. Yeah. I know he's still he's working his way back. He like that ankle injury or foot injury he got against Ballygunner was slow to heal. No, he's working away. So I think he's trimmed down a bit as well. So like I'd have no doubt maybe over the next few weeks we'll see him in action.
Yeah, a couple of the other managers from Tipperary were were out over the weekend. So I was there to see Antrim. They were well behind on Dublin for most of the game, but brought it back to within 3 points for a finish. And then Wexford had a handy enough win over Westmeath, 223 to 115. So, Darren Gleeson, I'm sure, will be a little bit disappointed, especially a week after only losing by 6 to Kilkenny and playing quite well. Darragh Egan, he'll be happy enough, even though, again, huge amount of misses. And, I think they suffer from that whole same thing that Tipp often have, shooting from 100 yards, probably 20 times a game. Well, 10 times a game.
Yeah, that's the frustrating thing for Antrim when I was listening to you on co-commentary in the first half when I think they got it back to 6-5 and they hit a rake of wides around the middle of the first half and they probably should have gone ahead. And I suppose that's the thing for Antrim. They've got to be more economical with their scoring chances than a lot of other teams. But they're getting close. And what if they have? I suppose that they have the Laois game as the one they're going to target. They have to go to Waterford next. Probably not going to be a win. I'd actually love to have seen Antrim. It's probably the wrong time to play Kilkenny. Like if they had played Kilkenny after having a game under their belts, they maybe could have nicked the win. But they're still working in the right direction. Just that element of depth. And I suppose the thing for Wexford is the next few games for them against Cork and against Limerick, against Clare. Like they'll be the real acid test. Was like the second half against Galway was very worrying.
Yeah, I know you said you wouldn't look too much into Clare's defeat to Limerick at the weekend, but the manner of it, I thought, and it's
there was elements you would be concerned with. I just thought, in terms of particularly their puck outs and driving long balls and having to get Limerick halfback, and in the championship they're not going to do that. They'll have a puck out strategy developed where they'll be going short more and things like that. I just thought from that point of view they won't be as naive, but definitely in terms of maybe effort and appetite for the game and the physicality, that you'd be definitely you definitely think Lohan's going to be using that as a stick to beat them for the next few weeks building up to their next game.
Yeah, I mean, like they've John Conlon, Ryan Taylor, Shane O'Donnell, Tony Kelly, so excellent players to come back. But it's because it's not that long in terms of like the amount of competitive matches that you play since the Kilkenny All-Ireland semi-final where they completely imploded. Like in this game, to my money, and I know they got some scores in garbage time, they fairly imploded here. I'm trying to remember, what was their first league game? They battered Westmeath.
That probably wasn't a great tune-up game. Like they looked like a team off the pace, whereas Limerick had gotten a good workout against Cork. Like so, and there could have been something in that from Clare, maybe just that the Westmeath game just didn't set them up well for what was coming last weekend.
But even in the Munster Hurling League, look into it as much as you want. But Tipperary completely bossed them in Nina that day. And I can't remember what the finishing scoreline was. I think it was probably tight enough for a finish. But Tipperary, 8 points, but Tipp could have won by double that. I mean, completely dominated the game. And maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe I'm prematurely looking at Tipperary thinking, there's a nice team coming together there. Nice panel, I should add. But
I think we're definitely in the era where it was a few years ago where we never you're comparing English soccer where you're always one game away for a crisis. Like it's sort of an element coming into the GA analysis now where if you play it badly, it's time to worry. But I don't think Clare will panic yet. Like I think there's definitely they'll get it shaken up. I think there's no doubt come championship they'll be a very, very tough animal.
Yeah, and obviously Cork have 2 wins from 2, but geez, their problem is really away from the pitch. Dara Fitzgibbon injury, Alan Connolly, Robbie O'Flynn, Dara Fitzgibbon. I might even be missing out on one as well. So they have a lot of issues away from the pitch.
But there's definitely a ruthless, and they definitely have the sort of the Beavens thing of going for goals. Like even the way that as soon as the red card happened, they went for the kill. Like so, look, it was to go to Salt Hill and win. Good result. Like they have Westmeath next. Wexford and Clare. You probably think they're going to be one of the semi-final. You're probably looking at Cork and Limerick probably to come out of the 2 semi-finals from 1A, and you're probably, I wouldn't say Tipp yet, was like the Dublin Waterford games will determine that. So, but like if you're thinking that if Tipp get to a semi-final, you're probably looking at a game against Cork or Limerick. I do think that I wouldn't mind Tipp getting a crack at Limerick before the summer, if you know what I mean, just to get a go with them. If I not that I'd be fearful, but I think you'd love to test yourself against them before you play them in the championship.
Yeah, River Power says having a lot of bodies is key for the Cahill running game plan. The likes of Niall O'Mara and Keane O'Dwyer will be crucial as the potential injuries of Munster Championship out. And actually, because so many teams are now running the ball through the lines, packing the middle, but like there's this huge onus that if you're a player, you beat a man, as in physically. You're going to have to meet a man, and they're all so powerful now before you pop off the ball. Yeah. Did you notice how many players went off with like blood injuries and whatever and like blows to the head over the weekend? So I think that's only going to mount as the summer goes on. So you'll definitely need a very deep panel, which is where all those extra injuries that Tipperary have even before the season started are definitely counted against them. So the Dillon Quirke Foundation game is on this weekend. Tipperary against Kilkenny, Sunday, 2:00 at Semple Stadium. I've put the link there on Twitter if you want to buy tickets for it. So look, obviously this is a great thing.
It's crucially say you buy tickets, but if you can't go and you want to support, there's an option there. I think you'll be sent on. I think the match program, and it'll also be live streamed for the same price at €20. So look, it's there's every option is there for anybody who wants to be there or can't be there and wants to watch it. So look, it's a fantastic cause. Like I think they've already past the 100,000 mark. I know they want to hit 1 million. So like I think this weekend they'll have a big. This will go a long way towards hitting their target this weekend, and like it'll be a good game. Like I think neither time would be at close to full strength. But as I said earlier, I don't think Liam Cahill will disrespect the game an awful lot too much by maybe making massive changes. I think there'll be definitely some guys who played last weekend will get a run this weekend. There'll be some guys that were on the bench, maybe some guys in the extended panel. So like there'll be plenty there. Plus, look, he's a teammate from last year. I'm sure that the teammates will look to honour him in the best way possible and going out and performing and just keeping the momentum going as well from the last few weeks.
Yeah, so Tipperary footballers, they've had a tough start to the year, losing narrowly. Poor start to the game against Down the first day out, but lost narrowly enough for a finish, and then of course got fairly hockeyed by Cavan up there. Connor Sweeney, he's out for the year with an ACL. Obviously, there's other players not missing. So it would be a pretty important game to try and get a bit of a result here for David Power and co.
Yeah, no, the next two weeks particularly are massive, like home to Antrim and away to Longford, the three teams that are at the bottom of the table. So you think that these two games for Tipp, if you can get minimum, you've got to get 2 points. You've got to win at least one of them going into the last three games. Like so, and look, it's not ideal, and anything that could go wrong is going wrong. Like Connor Sweeney gone, and now your new captain Stephen O'Brien is ruled out for the next 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring problem. Like so,
when it rains, it pours.
It is, and it's backs against the wall stuff. But then this group experienced it last year. That only 1 point out of 4 after their first 2 games in the National League, and okay, it was Division 4. Standard wasn't as strong as in Division 3, but look, they turned it around. And look, I think the fact that Sweeney is gone and now O'Brien is effectively probably gone most for the guts of the rest of the league, their game plan of playing direct into a 3-man full forward line and 3 big guys is gone now. They've got to go back to basics. They've got to maybe start carrying the ball harder, going attacking quicker, maybe through the lines. And we saw last year, like, they definitely changed their style of football mid-season last year after those 2 games. They came back, played brilliantly against Sligo, and won in Wexford, beat Carlow, and won up in Cavan impressively. So they did it last year. Hopefully they can do it this year. Like, it's just massive. And but then on top of O'Brien, like Mikey O'Shea and Conor Cadell, they have head injuries that are being assessed for concussion. There's no guarantee they'll be available for this weekend. And maybe just hopefully Paddy Feehan will be back. He'd be a big plus in the middle of the field. But you'd worry where the scores are going to come from. Like, a lot of the stress is going to come on Sean O'Connor, and he's only 22 years of age, and he's playing, I think, a Sigerson Cup final tonight. So, gosh, you nearly think the way things are going for Tipp, O'Connor's probably going to get injured tonight, and he'll be out, and then suddenly your 3 best forwards are gone. So look, it's just a tough time. Like, when you go through the 20 players that played for Tipp in the 2020 Munster final, how few of them are left now between injury, retirements, and work commitments, or lads gone abroad. It's just incredible, the turnover, and we just don't have the same quality of players coming through. We have to develop nearly a practical new team, and it was always going to be a tough campaign. But I do think it's backs against the wall and stuff. I'd love to see Tipp, maybe, as I think you saw them last year, when Tipp should throw off the shackles and go at teams. They're very, very effective. I do think sometimes when they're maybe tied into a structured game, it doesn't suit them. So I do think Tipp probably, even though the onus is on them this weekend to win, I do think they have nothing to lose. They're backs against the wall, so why not come out fighting and really go at Antrim this weekend and see what happens?
Yeah, especially in Semple, it's definitely a game where Tipperary want to make a bit of a statement. The Camogie side, they're out for the first time this year. Tall enough order, though, against Galway.
Yeah, no, it's exciting time. That's what their last Tipp team into league action, but it's interesting to see how they go. Like, new manager and Dennis Kelly, I know they've put in an awful lot of work since before Christmas, looking to bridge that gap. And I suppose fascinating to see the strength. I do think it's a Tipperary team that on paper is, on the panel, is an awful lot stronger than last year. To have Claudia Quirke, who's got a good club campaign back. She only came back towards the end of last year's championship, or county, or the intercounty championship, after doing the cruise. Karen Kennedy missed the whole of last year's intercounty season with a shoulder injury. Like, she's probably Tipp's best player in your centre back, so she's back. And of course, Orla O'Dwyer is committed, and she's just, I follow her on Instagram, and you just see how rich she is. You can see she is a professional athlete, and you think if she plays midfield or wing forward or half forward, and she gets a ball and is on a solo run, I think she's going to get away from opposition players. And if you get forwards working off her, she's going to be such a a weapon. And like we've seen Camogie develop over the last few years, like particularly the games between Cork and Kilkenny and Galway. Like they're not easy on the eye, but the physicality in them, excuse me, is incredible. Excuse me, I'm frog my throat. The physicality of the games were incredible, and I think that's definitely the element Tipp have been lacking over the last few years. And those three players will definitely bring improved Tipp's element of physicality. There's no doubt about it. So it'll be interesting to see what team to put out. I'm sure there's injuries and things like that. Ashburn Cup recently, so a lot of girls will be tied up to that. It'll be interesting to see the team to put out.
Yeah, and the final item of the week then is the Tipperary ladies footballers. So they're out. They've won 3 games from 3 so far. Face Laois this weekend. So it's an opportunity to really get up ahead of steam heading into the championship.
Yeah, it's another home game. Like I say, 3 wins out of 3. Laois should be tricky now. I think Tipp lost to Laois last year in the league. So be a nice barometer for Tipp now if they could turn that result over. We go 4 wins out of 4, and then you're heading into the Monaghan game around 5 the weekend after, and like that would be one of the key ones to get a win and stay on that promotion push. Looks like it'll be between Tipp, maybe Monaghan, and Armagh. The Armagh game is the last game for Tipp in round 7, so definitely they're heading into the next 2 weeks with Laois and Armagh, key game for Peter Creedon's girls. So hopefully they can continue on that win and run.
Yeah, so I think we've pretty much everything covered for this weekend. Of course, we've kind of already put out the link on Twitter there for the Dillon Quirke Foundation game. So it'd be great if people could support that. We'll chat again next week, hopefully after another few wins for Tipperary teams, and we'll be previewing the Tipperary hurlers against Dublin next week. Don't forget to pick up a copy of the Nenagh Guardian. Thanks very much, Shane.
Cheers, Shane.